Hello potential friends and adventurers. I'm M, and today we're going to talk about when is a situation unfair for your players. Welcome to the DM table. I often hear DMs ask whether they were fair, whether they did a good job when a situation grew too tough and players were either unable to handle it or they got stuck, whether it was a puzzle or a diplomatic situation or battle. And I wanted to help, so let's get to it. Players can occasionally get stuck, especially if the DM is new and thought of only one solution and stuck to it for whatever the situation may be. Now, this is an advice that you may have already heard, but if you accept only one solution, the players may not find it. It may be too obvious, too obscure, it could be all manner of different things. Now, as I said, whilst you may have heard this advice, where you can accept logical solutions from the players so that the story proceeds, and this is also wonderful and such, but when it's available, it's great, and they solved it, and if you're not a totally new DM that doesn't know that this is acceptable, you're fine. But what about in all the other situations? That's why I suggest a new thing. Well, at least I haven't heard anybody else suggest it, but I have been using it for all of my 20 years of DMing, and that's proof test your puzzles, your situations, your rooms, your traps, yourself in your mind, and think up at least 3 or so solutions and be confident that there are more. You don't have to think up more, just check whether 3 plus is what should be happening with the resources that the party has, with their level, abilities, whatever it is that they have on hand. You want to realistically have people be able to make it through. Now, that doesn't mean pad it out. I just mean check whether there are real multiple solutions that are not impossible, obscure, or too narrow. Because whilst in action movies, hero makes it just in time and barely squeezes through and so forth, you're leading here a live situation, and as such, the trick is that you want to make sure that there are multiple narrow windows, and then when players find one of them and squeeze through, they feel like real heroes, and they are, because they thought of it themselves. And you didn't need to lead them to it, not too much. Of course, another thing is that you need to have serious descriptions that cover just enough that's necessary and inform players sufficiently. Now, here's a trick on how I try to do it myself. You do a description, you wait for your players' initial reactions, and then on the fly, right then, continue as if you had more description and you were just waiting for them to react a little bit, which is what you sort of did actually, and then you gauge their reactions, and this on the fly part is where you fill in the description sufficiently, hint more, explore their perception with them so that you can feel confident that they know and have noticed things that are crucial to them, even if it's somewhat not yet the time to, say, walk up to the object in question. You might even want to do this later, when they're exploring the room. You can do this during all of the situations that are relevant. This could be some negotiations, it could be combat, a battle, it could be a puzzle or a trap, but you want to seep players' perception right into them so that they can look around and find solutions to stuff. And that way they won't get stuck as easily. Now, when is it fair for the players to lose? Well, if they did not succeed at multiple attempts to solve the thing, then maybe it is fine, but you are not trying to have them lose. Maybe it's not a total party wipe, maybe somebody makes it out and rescues the others. Maybe something happens that helps them a little, but don't overuse this whatsoever. It's such a lucky, rare opportunity to have something happen in their favor, so out of the blue, in the middle of the danger, so use that sparingly. Further, there is also stages. I usually use average of 3 stages of interactivity to any loss condition. It can be more, it can be less, but I really wouldn't go below 2, that's some pretty specific stuff. You want to have players be able to search for the trap. If it's a trap, then you want them to be able to disarm it if possible, break it, do something to it. You should still have them have all the required skills and tools and such, but if somebody came up with a solution, let them apply it manually. They can roll as well to see whether this triggers and the trap is loud and it attracts monsters or just something like that. It's not necessarily that you don't use their skills off their character sheet, but you also want to integrate their role-playing and inventivity. Then, even if they didn't notice it, they can try to dodge the trap, have some sort of dexterity roll or something like that. Whatever the system may allow you to do. Have them describe to you how they're dodging, see how good this is. You can adjust the difficulty depending on how viable their solutions are. And then, even if they fall, you might wanna check whether they grab on, whether they get stabbed where it really hurts and kills, or just where it really hurts. If it's a spike pit trap that automatically opens, for example. And you can use this in any important situation that could be important for the story, for the players, or in any other way which makes it really important. In fact, you should do this if it could be really important for the players. And just remember, players are, well, they're very invested if you're doing this job well, and as such, even some medium or small things that look like irrelevant to you may be very important to players. So if their loved one is in danger of dying, give them at least that much of an opportunity for warning or something, of an ability to do something about it. Or at least try to see how realistic this could be. I mean, try to not turn them into bitter, vengeful loner that has nothing to live for except killing things. Try to avoid that. And this is a good way to assure that the situation was fair, whether towards the players personally or anything that they care for. Have really playable interactivity. And this even goes for puzzles. Even if puzzle is supposed to have a specific solution, just think how realistic is it for them to break that wall, that door, that lock, and, well, some of those things are very hard, some of those things are pretty hard, some of those things are easy but not as easy to spot. Just have those multiple solutions that were tested that I mentioned, and also have your grand glorious solution that will be so dramatic when people discover it. Therefore, you can have your interesting centerpiece, and if it gets missed, well, such is adventuring in a dungeon. Things get missed sometimes. That's all there is to it. Well, as such, I wish you luck in your adventuring. And adventurer, if you thought this was unique, maybe spare a click. And I hope to see you next week.